When are we all going to come together and realize that these people who are on the internet posing as activists are actually just miserable people who can't contribute to the world, so they contribute to its destruction? Every day I get on this app, among other apps, and I see somebody who looks like they haven't showered in 3 days, complaining about late-stage capitalism, or capitalist this, blah, 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 blah. The system is rigged against us. And of course, there are always going to be problems. There are plenty of problems within our society, but everybody just wants to blame capitalism, the American government, but they never want to blame the human condition. They never want to admit the fact that it's not capitalism that makes people greedy. It's just the fact that they're human. Because in non-capitalist societies, guess who's still greedy? The people at the top. Capitalism works because it plays on the competitive and selfish aspect of human nature. There is nothing wrong with that, okay? You are going to feed your family before you go and feed somebody else. That is down to the nature of our being. And the craziest part is that if a lot of y'all actually looked into why these problems in America are happening, it's not because of capitalism, it's because of government intervention in the free market. The reason these activists hate capitalism so much, there's 2 reasons. One is because it requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of work if you start out poor to become successful. Now, I agree. I wish that there was a world where people didn't have to work as hard to be successful, but that's never going to happen. The difference here is that in a capitalist society, poor people have the opportunity to become successful. Whereas in a society that is not capitalist, poor people will work very hard, but they're never going to see any success with that. Now, the second reason is because your hard work has to also be associated with value. You yourself have to provide value, whether it's in your work, in a service, in a company you create, or in your intellectual ability. So when these activists start to find that out, that they have to work hard and they have to invest in making themselves valuable to the free market, rather than reading, educating themselves, finding a way to make themselves useful to the rest of the world, they're going to hop on and grab onto an ideology that says tear it all down, because it is a lot of work. Not only, work on the outside world, but work on your inner world. And they don't ever want to do that.
Hello everyone, this is Emmanuel Cook. We will be reacting to a new video today, so make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe down below, and let's get into the video.
We can't even have a conversation because you don't fundamentally believe that capitalism is wrong. What do I think capitalism is wrong? A lot of things. Economic instability, political instability, the destruction of our environment, the constant ceaseless exploitation of workers, the fact that it thrives on inequality and the oppression of minorities. I literally cannot even fit all of my criticism into one video. I could write a fucking book about why I fucking hate capitalism and it still would not be enough. And so then now you're asking, what's wrong with Korea constantly working to grow their country and their economy? And I totally understand where you're coming from. I assume you're around my age, so you have parents and you have grandparents who grew up in Korea post-war, and you know how completely destroyed Korea was after the war. There's so much poverty. Despite that, Korea was able to become one of the biggest economic powerhouses, despite the land having almost little to no natural resources. But in their quest to becoming this economic powerhouse, Korea has absolutely destroyed the lives of so many people. Do we live in the same Korea? Because every time I'm there, there's always protests going on about how Samsung, LG, and Hyundai, or any other big corporation, have been abusing the shit out of the people who worked in their factories, wage theft, unsafe working conditions, workers dying, and not even getting so much as a head turn from any of those corporations. And even if you're not a factory worker and you're just a corporate worker, do you know how awful and abusive corporate culture is in Korea? Gonde culture, how my dad worked at one of the biggest Korean companies there was, and he would get verbally abused every single day. That is literally the reality of so many workers in Korea. There's no substantial child labor laws. Healthcare is still really expensive, one of the highest elderly poverty rates in the world. So when I see fellow Koreans not understanding the atrocity that capitalism is causing, not even in Korea, but just on a global scale, it breaks my heart, because how do you not see so many people struggling and such little people benefiting?
I will never not be surprised by the number of people who genuinely believe that capitalism was a good thing for the world. There are Africans today who are shorter than their ancestors were 500 years ago because of poverty and nutritional deficiencies from being integrated into the capitalistic world order. And for everyone that wants to be like, oh no, that was colonialism, that was slavery, consider that the desire for cheap labor taken to the extreme is slavery. It's chattel slavery. The desire for cheap land taken to the extreme means genociding people for the land that they're on. Both slavery and colonialism existed before capitalism. The atrocities that we saw associated with European slavery was a direct consequence of the capitalistic economic system that they put in place. And if you thought capitalism has magically lifted millions or even billions of people out of poverty, no, capitalism is associated with the rise in poverty, a rise in premature death, and a rise in nutritional deficiencies. The progress that we see today is because of socialist movements that have forced the historic benefactors of capitalism to share with the rest of us.
When I graduated from college, I came out with a very conservative mindset when it comes to things like the economy, money, all that. I'm Adele Wang. I specialize with helping people around the world create lives at work. And yes, I spent a good 10, 15 years as a very successful analyst in corporate before I started working with people one-on-one in all walks of life. And I started to notice some interesting things. When I really sat with people and what was going on for them, I had to really think more deeply about my assumptions. I was an econ major and I learned all about supply and demand, that taxes are bad, government needs to stay out of everything, and that's the way the world could be most efficient, make the most money, yada, yada, yada. Over the years, though, I have noticed that this whole idea of trickle-down capitalism, it doesn't work. It took me a while to realize that these ideas of free-flowing information, equal access to resources, it doesn't really work in the real world. It sounds great in theory, but it's not how things really work. And I had to really sit with this, that my whole outlook on how money should be handled in the economy, in politics, taxes, etc., really had to evolve. So as someone who studied econ at a graduate level, now I'm sitting with a question I want to ask you, especially anyone out there in the money field. What is wrong with flat earnings? These days, there's this idea that if earnings are flat, that's somehow bad, right? We want more. Wall Street's not happy if earnings are flat. People don't get promoted if earnings are flat. It's kind of looked at almost a failure, but not quite. But in reality, all it means is that people are still making money. Everyone still has a job. The economy is still running. Companies are still making money and paying a profit. It's just not constantly growing. This idea that things have to constantly grow at all costs is what's wrecking the environment, stressing out human capital. Because let's face it, like there is a limit to how hard and fast you can insist on things constantly growing before people have had enough. People's health gets wrecked, depression, anxiety, this constant drive for more and more. What's wrong with flat earnings? Everyone still has a job. You still had some profit from your stock portfolio. Dividends were still somewhat positive. And it's enough. At what point is flat not enough that we still need to squeeze more blood out of a turnip? We've passed a point where we just can't keep doing it this way anymore. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Greed is a part of human nature. Human beings constantly want more money, more progress. Just everything has to be in excess. That's the issue. So it will never stop. Human beings' desire for more will be the end of them.
Why does the U.S. have so many homeless people? And you also asked if homeless people get free food and money from the government. There are a lot of reasons why we have homeless people, but some of those reasons include the fact that we have landlords. A lot of other countries don't have landlords. The market for housing is not very regulated. It's the cost of living when it comes to rent and mortgages and stuff just kind of depend on what these companies are deciding. So our cost of living right now is pretty high. It's difficult. The other reason is we have property taxes to pay. Another reason is the fact that if you are going to have a job, you really have to have a car in most cities. There are some situations where you can get a place to live and have walking distance, a place to work. For many people, that's just not the case. And if you don't have a job, you can't afford a car. If you don't have a car, you can't get a job. So a lot of people just end up in this really difficult situation. Another reason is we have a huge mental health crisis in this country. A lot of people are addicted to drugs, and most of these people do not actually receive the help that they need. And a lot of homeless people include veterans, which don't also get the help that they very much deserve. And the thing is, we have enough housing and enough buildings to house all of the homeless people, but we live under capitalism. So that is not really the first priority. And since the housing isn't really like regulated by the government or the state, no one's forced to house these homeless people. Important thing I forgot to mention is the fact that we have credit scores here. And so if you have ever been evicted, if you have late payments, if you haven't paid a credit card bill, if you've had a car repossessed, all of these different things affect your credit score. If you have a less than ideal credit score, no landlord is going to take you in. And then another issue is interest rates. So if you even wanted to buy a home, the interest rates alone will prevent you from even being able to do that. And we require down payments in order to buy a house. So, if you don't have 10, 20, 30, $40,000 to put down on a house, you might not be able to get a house. There are some loans that allow you to not put a down payment or make a really small down payment, but usually there's a big down payment. I'm sure that there are a lot of other details that go into all of this that I just don't know about, but that's just what I know. And when it comes to money and food for homeless people, it really depends on the state and the city. There are a lot of resources available, but I know that the accessibility varies a lot. I think this is a state-by-state issue, but I also know that you're not supposed to feed homeless people. A lot of people will try to set up tables and stands and stuff, but if they don't have a license, you cannot be feeding people that are homeless, which is insane. In a lot of big cities that have homeless people, they will have certain things around the city to avoid these people from being able to linger around there. So not only do they not have access to housing, they don't really have a place on the street either. Now, for some of these people, it is absolutely their own fault that they're homeless. A lot of people actually just want to live on the street. Sounds weird, I know, but a lot of them actually choose that. And then there are a lot of people that are just in a really bad situation and they cannot get the help and the resources that they need to get off the street. And that's because our government doesn't really care about the homeless people. So, yeah.
Advice from the past doesn't work in this technological age. It's y'all tell people to live on less, live below your means. How do you live below your means? When grocery go up every day, literally. It's not like the price changes over 6 months. This is every day that groceries go up. And then y'all tell people to find extra time to start their own business. Some people are working 12, 16 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. You still need to sleep. You still need rest. Our bodies can only take so much. And then y'all talk all this LLC and entrepreneur shit when a lot of times the barrier to entry or upfront cost for these things, people, how are you going to pay for this stuff when you only got $50 left after your essential bills, trying to keep a roof over your head, hoping your car doesn't break down on top of the payment that you already make on it that has some astronomical interest rate anyway. But everybody doesn't live somewhere where they can catch public transportation. It's y'all have all this advice and it sounds really good, but when you get to talking to people, it's just I don't know. Yes, we need more than one income. How are people going to go about it? That looks different than it used to look. And it trips me out that y'all try to talk down on people who become content creators as a source of income, because it's there's really no other place where you can live your regular life and get income afterward. So it's just yeah, the old advice, it doesn't work. And then y'all try to make it seem well, people are just stupid and they don't understand. Or here's my favorite, they're just lazy. How is somebody lazy working 12 hours a day? At one point, I had 18-hour days when I was going to school and work and still doing shit on the side trying to bring in money, and my money was still short. So it's just are you listening to yourselves? Can we be honest about what we're actually living under? And I don't have all the answers, but I do know the advice that's given, a lot of it is, you're just pissing people off or offending them or making people feel low, because there are people who are doing the best they can every fucking day and it's not enough. And that's something that you're not prepared for when it comes to adulthood, because most of us, when we were children, they made it seem like if you do your best, you would get the best results. But see, they didn't calculate in capitalism when they were teaching you that fucking lesson.
A quick reminder, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and let's continue the video.
Capitalism is unethical. It's not equal that my friends and family worked long, difficult hours at warehouses for another rich man. It's not equal that there's people that can barely afford rent when there's others that are charging for rent. But this system was established centuries ago, and we have to realize that the only thing we can control is our own selves. The difference between these rich men is that they work long hours towards what they wanted to do. Whether it be staying up late building a website, a marketing plan, or sacrificing time to party for time to work. You get to choose in this country, and your outcome will be determined by those choices. The only way you can create significant change is by becoming that landlord or becoming that CEO. Only then you have the power to create a difference and to treat your employees and tenants with respect.
My personal favorite thing about this stage of like capitalism is if you're like looking up jobs, it's like, okay, person who like looks after children, $3 an hour. Person who looks after elderly, $2.50 an hour. Person who makes sure that like children are not exploited and that they're safe, 50 cents an hour. But then you look and it's like associate murderer of puppies at the misery factory, $100,000 a week. And then if you complain about it, some business bro is like, I'm not sure what we're complaining or arguing about. The economics of murdering puppies is just better. Like, it's just more lucrative to murder puppies than it is to take care of children. And you're like, kind of like, okay. And then some other guy is just like, you don't need to work for that misery factory. You can start your own misery factory and you can murder twice as many puppies and make $200,000 a month and then, or week. And then somebody else would be like, I don't even work for the misery factory. I just consult the misery factory and tell them that actually, if you murdered more golden retriever puppies, you could actually save 50 cents a year.
Part of it is also because we don't understand that heaven is the space in between, as I've said in previous videos. So like, if I make $12 a year, for instance, and my chosen and obligatory expenses come out to $6 a year, how much do I have at the end of the year? You'd probably be inclined to answer $6. But to me, money is just a proxy for time mostly. But in this case, money is a proxy for a very specific type of time, which manifests itself as freedom. That is to say, every year I earn 1 year of freedom. If all of a sudden I'm making $1,200 and I decide to up all of my expenses, partly because I have to perhaps, and partly because I choose to $600, I am in the exact same position. I still own the same amount of freedom. The amount of space between me and the thing breathing down my neck has not changed whatsoever, even though the amount that I have has. Congrats, Isaiah. You have $5 million. You did it. You went crazy. Everything worked out. Why did you up all of your expenses to match your new income? I recognize some of the new things that you have in your life are good, but the way you were moving, you would think that buying shit is the only facet of the solution, when we both know it's not. A fraction of the expenses with the right lifestyle and priorities could have made you just as, if not happier. And with all that surplus, you could have been helping people. You could have been pumping money into changing the way things are. You had a shot at freedom and the chance to get resources that could actually be put towards freedom at large for real. And the first thing you went and did was buy yourself another chain. Cliche. Why do black people like jewelry so much? But it's a good analogy. In casinos, there's no clocks on the walls and the carpets are ugly. Keep your eyes on the game. Don't think about the time. The very last thing the casino wants you to do is think about leaving.
So I haven't worked in nearly a year. I have essentially taken a year off. I've been traveling, exploring myself. I'm going to sound like a dickhead saying that. I have an interview tomorrow for a full-time job. I've had a couple interviews because I'm considering starting to work full-time again. But the thought of going from 0 hours a week to 40 hours a week is actually insane. I have worked full-time before, but the thing is, as humans, we get so used to our condition that I quite genuinely just became so used to being tired all the time, not having enough time for my friends, not having enough time to date, not having enough time to exercise, not having enough time to eat healthily. I became so used to it that became my norm. Like, living on stress quite genuinely became my norm. Now my norm has become full autonomy over my time and being able to do whatever I want. And yes, I'm aware of the heinous privilege in that statement. And obviously, I need to work. I don't have money. But being in the position that I'm in, going from working full-time, it was more than full-time if I'm honest, to taking a whole year off, doing whatever the actual fuck I wanted, to the thought of going right back to where I was before, I think just has me awoken to how fucking insane working 40 plus hours a week is. I am genuinely so scared that the second I start working full-time, all of the progress I have made on my physical health, mental health, will just go absolutely out the window. I think I have decided from experiencing this that my biggest goal in life is to never work full-time. I used to just be like, oh, you won't work a day in your life if you love your job. And don't get me wrong, I've never worked a job that I've loved. So that could be true. But I just don't believe that having no autonomy over your time can ever be healthy. I think capitalism forces us to adjust to this. We start waking up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym. We cut out socializing. We do what we have to do to survive and thrive to the best of our ability.
But I no longer, I'm just going to sit here and be like, oh, if I find the right job, if I work my way up enough in a career, if I have enough power within a corporation, like it'll get better, it'll get better, it'll get better. 40 hours is just never going to be good. It's just never going to be good. You may be thinking, okay, how are you going to afford to not work full time? I won't have kids if I can't afford it. I won't buy a house if I can't afford it. Genuinely, I would rather live in a van full time than ever work full time again. At least long term. Like I'll work full time for a little bit to get money if I need to. And maybe this is just me being young and hippie, but I would rather work seasonally and just never work full time again. I would rather never have expensive assets. I would rather never own a car, never own a house. I would rather not be able to have a really expensive wedding. I don't care what the cost is. And I promise you, I totally understand the privilege of what I'm saying, like my goal of never working full time. I understand some people work full time and they still can't own a car, can't own a house, can't pay bills. Like it depends totally on the wages in the country that you're from. The point that I'm trying to make is just that my goal no longer has anything to do with what my career is. I used to think, okay, if I pursue something creative and I'm really successful in it, like I always wanted to be a musician. I was like, okay, if I make it as a musician, then I'll love my work so much. And I'm just like, I don't want to do 40 hours of anything. There is not one thing that I want to do 40 hours of. I'm not trying to say I want to make money fast. I want to escape the rat race by hustling my way out of the 9 to 5. No, I want to cut my expenses down so that I never have to work full time. If I have half the expenses, then I only need to work half the hours. That is my point.
She is extremely privileged, first of all. But you ran out of money. Go back to work. 40 hours plus per week. Like, just work. Work hard. And if you want full autonomy again, you have to make online income. And then have autonomy at least over your time and your location. But you still have to work for online income regardless. So you have to work regardless. Even now, I work about 84 hours per week. About 12 hours per day. I have plans for my future. So, yeah, it is what it is, honestly.
Something I will literally not understand is that Americans coming together because of the top 2% or the top 1%, right? While we can barely afford to make ends meet, and our minimum wage is still like $7.25 an hour, despite the cost of living like skyrocketing, right? And those same Americans who complain about those things and complain about living under a capitalistic society will literally jump at the sight of anything socialist or communist. Like, it literally makes no sense to me. You guys are complaining about prices. You guys are complaining about corporations doing what they want and overcharging you guys like fucking crazy. And then when Kamala Harris would mention like price gouging, or she would mention like capping these prices, you guys would call her Marxist. You guys would call her socialist. So what do you guys want? Do you guys want to keep living under a capitalistic society where corporations only benefit and you guys keep paying out of pocket while the top 2% keeps living and thriving? Or do you want to put humanity back into politics?
Can I just remind you that you actually deserve grace too? Can I remind you that you're actually doing the best that you possibly can with all the information that you have up until now? Can I remind you that the judgment and the criticism that you feel in your own head and that you're experiencing is actually not yours? Some of it is repeated patterns that you treated yourself like because somebody else at some point in time, or you perceived something, or you injected something in yourself that was not actually a representation of who you actually are. Can you give yourself permission to just be kind to yourself? I struggle the hardest with not beating myself up in comparison, because what I experienced in my upbringing and even in the last couple of years has been a lot of shame for not being where other people's expectations for me were. And in turn, that became something that I became extremely shameful about, and I would beat myself up because I'm not taking this action or I'm not making this move. And until I started to sit in like meditation, I started to journal a lot, and I basically started to understand like, who the hell am I started giving myself a whole lot more grace, because I realized that actually in life, things don't change as quickly as you think that they do. But the one thing that can stay consistent in changing, which is a huge form of action, is your mindset. And the minute you change your mind, that's when then other things will start to change around you. And most of the time you don't even realize it because you're just so focused on how can I become the best version of myself that I can be. So if you're struggling and you feel like, oh my God, I'm living in fear and I'm not taking action with this and that, a lot of the times it's just this just going on a tangent. Once you calm down, take a couple breaths and realize, baby, You've actually gotten through a lot of fearful situations. I'm sure you've changed your perspective on things that most people would never do. I'm sure you have left jobs or relationships that most people wouldn't do. I'm sure that you started to rest more instead of pushing your body when other people are probably burnt out, overwhelmed, and not sleeping well. So you just have to know that you're doing the best that you need to do. And please be kind to yourself. Give yourself grace because you freaking deserve it. Bye.
I don't know who needs to hear this right now, but I know that I'm having to tell myself this and remind myself of this, so I'm sure that there are others that also need to hear this right now. Love yourself a little extra right now, okay? You are dealing with so much. You are handling so much. Some that people know about and probably a ton of things that nobody knows about. You're going through things that probably a lot of people don't know about. And you deserve some grace. And unfortunately, the only one that really can give you the grace that you need is yourself. So love yourself a little extra. Be patient with yourself. Give yourself that grace. And remind yourself that you're doing your very best.
I feel like a lot of people do not understand what employment is. Like, when somebody is employing you, you are providing the value. Somebody else is buying it from them, and then they're giving you some of your money back. But you don't get all of it back. You get some of it back. And yes, you need to take fees and cuts and percentages. There's management. There's all kinds of things. There's certain jobs that wouldn't exist without higher powers and such. But at the same time, you need to recognize that that job exists because you are providing value, something that they can profit off of. So they are fundamentally taking more than they're giving back to you, but you're providing more than you get. From the time that I started working, I've always gotten the compliment that I'm such a hard worker, that I'm always one of the best, that I'm great. And all I hear is I should be getting paid more and you should take your labor elsewhere, because why am I exerting more value and getting paid the same amount? And if that's the case, if I know that my value is more, I should be getting paid more. And so if I leave, I will. When I totally understand if you don't want to be your own boss, I'm not telling you to go start a job and be a boss if you don't want to. Don't be, like, if you like employment, you like it. But this is for all the people who hate it. It's valid to hate it, and there's logic behind that, and I totally get it. If you feel like your time is being wasted, your time is kind of being wasted.
If you don't have the strength to work for another person, you probably won't have the energy to work for yourself. I know everyone wants to work for themselves, but dude, it's not easy either. You work like 60 to 80 hours per week, at least at the start. It's not easy, and you hardly have any breaks. And you do that for about a year to 3 years. And then you get small amounts of breaks. But from the jump, you're working 1.5 to 2 times more than a 9 to 5. That's a guarantee.
Okay, put a finger down if you just left work, you worked your ass off, you went really fast, you actually rushed all day because you're in Atlanta, Georgia, and you're prepping for a hurricane. So thousands of people are coming in. They are clearing out the shelves. You are going as fast as you can, but naturally, as you are one human being, you cannot keep up. Maybe also because you're a human, you chatted with your coworkers for like 2 minutes out of an 8-hour shift. And at the end of that 8-hour shift, 10 hours of your day gone, wiping the sweat off, you go to leave, and instead of being told, thank you, we appreciate and value you, you're told, oh, this is unacceptable. Oh, this is unreasonable. You didn't do enough. You're not working hard enough. You're not moving fast enough. I need you to stay and do more. It's 2 p.m. It's 2 p.m., babe. That's what time my schedule says I leave. Is it my fault that a hurricane is coming? Is it my fault that multi-billion-dollar corporations don't staff or pay people enough? Is that on me? Did I cause hundreds of people to come into this store? No, absolutely not. And to be told that by someone who makes 5 times your salary, when you, working 40 hours a week, can barely afford to put food on the table and a cheap apartment, and you don't even have good quality health care.
I
I think that a huge reason as to why we are so separated from connection and community in Western society is quite simply that community disrupts routine, and routine is heavily necessitated by late stage capitalism. What I mean by that is if you're working 40 hours a week, 9 to 5, the only way that for a lot of people this is actually maintainable is through a hefty routine, through booking Pilates classes and meal prepping. That is how you maintain physical and mental levels of health enough to constantly maintain and withstand working that much. And that sort of means that you save your community for the weekend, you save your community for Friday night drinks and Sunday morning brunch. Like, that is the only consistent access to community that you have, especially if you live alone. But if you live in a truly communal space, whether that be with friends or housemates or with your family, you cannot so strictly adhere to routine. For example, the other day I got home from work and I was really tired, and I had it in my mind that I wanted to just go to yoga and go to bed, right? Like, I was exhausted, but I got home and someone that I was living with had had a really, really bad day. And a part of community is being there for your community. So I had to forego that layer of my routine. Obviously, I wasn't going to be like, sorry, you're disrupting my routine, I'm going to leave. I had to give some time to my community. And a huge reason that I don't like working full time is that I feel like I'm constantly choosing between community and between routine. And what I often perceive in other people that are lonely, people that are without connection and community, is that they feel the need to choose routine over community. For example, a huge aspect of community is food, cooking together, eating together. And I was raised being very communal with food. Like, if I cook a meal at home with my family, it goes without saying that someone else is going to eat the leftovers. I'm not going to pack it up into boxes for myself for my meal prep. If I want to do that, I'm cooking something separate, but I'm not going to cook dinner and then be like, no, sorry, you're hungry and it's dinner time. You can't eat the rest of what I've cooked for dinner because that's for mine. The whole premise of community is what's mine is yours, but capitalism and routine disrupts this. And the way I see it is something has always got to give. If you're working 40 hours a week and trying to survive under capitalism, something has got to give. Is it going to be a routine or is it going to be community? And if I've learned anything after being an adult for 5 years, it's that routine is the thing that should give, never community. Community is what you need to hold on to for dear life. What's mine is yours. Fuck the meal prep.
As somebody who works 2 jobs, it's not a flex. It's not as much as a flex as you people think it is. Working 2 jobs, although I am in a better financial position than what I was in before working 2 jobs, but it comes to a point where you're like, you'll get to a point to where your entire life is work. Like, literally, you wake up, go to work, and then your entire day is work, and then you go to sleep and get ready to go back to work 2 jobs the entire day again. Like, like, that shit gets really depressing sometimes. But hey, fuck it, sometimes I gotta do what I gotta do. But it's not a flex because I shouldn't have to be working 2 jobs to maintain some sense of stability and to afford the basic necessity.
After getting terribly sick this week to the point where I sound like this and it hurts to speak a little bit, I realized that working 2 jobs, 7 days a week, might not be the thing for me. I really don't want my content documenting these days in my lives to sound like this is something I'm glorifying or that's something I'm normalizing, because it in fact should not be normal, and I want you guys to know that I don't think that it should be. This is something that I have to go through for the means of survival. Even with it, I'm still barely surviving. Just want to point that out there. But after literally having to go to work while physically trembling and feeling like I'm going to throw up, and being told that I may or may not be able to go home. What the hell? And then having to call out on my job and them asking me if I found coverage when I literally could not speak to even call out. I've realized that I gotta put myself first, Lucius.
So what I do is I really just try my best to take care of myself. It's not easy working 2 jobs because then you have to learn how to have really good time management skills. I'm still working that on myself when it comes to managing my time better. But I know that will be a very good skill for me to learn when I'm moving forward with my life and whatever else I want to do. Another thing, make sure you get good quality sleep. Sleep is very important when it comes to not burning yourself out. And just cut out any BS. Like, try not to distract yourself with so many things at the same time. And when you finally get a break from working your 2 jobs, really enjoy and savor that moment, because then afterwards you're going to have to go back to work and go back to the way of your routine. I'm also in my 20s, So naturally, I have a lot of energy to work 2 jobs. And just remember, it's okay to have lazy days and days where you don't want to talk to people or you really don't want to go out. Just take care of yourself, like watch a movie, read a book, like really focus on taking care of yourself, because at the end of the day, like if you don't take care of you, you're not going to give your best to your jobs that you are working. I hope that helps, but if anyone here is working 2 jobs, like let me know what you guys do, because we should all help each other out. Also remember, why are you doing this? Like, are you trying to save your money? Are you trying to move out? Are there any debts that you're trying to pay off? Because you have to have a really strong reason of why you're doing this. Whenever you feel like you want to give up, your why is going to be the reason why you go forward and you keep going with it. And this is just my opinion. I think it's best to not be in a relationship while you're working 2 jobs. But it depends on the person. Like, I can't speak for you and I can't speak for no one if like you being in a relationship and then you work in 2 jobs, like if it's right for you, you'd have to make that decision yourself. But I hope this helps out of how to manage all of this at the same time.
Work life is non-existent right now. Words are hard right now. I'm on day 7 of working back-to-back doubles between my 2 jobs, where I wake up around like 4 a.m., go to my first job, there till 12 o'clock, go home, get home around 1, eat lunch, change into my clothes for my second job, go to second job, get to second job around like 2:30, sit in my car for like 10 minutes, work from 3 o'clock until 11:30, and then repeat. Your boy's exhausted.
I've been working 2 jobs. This is my 3rd week. All I got to say is God give me strength. Because, baby, that 5 p.m. to 3:30 a.m. be killing your girl, okay? Killing your girl. Because I be in bed 5 or 6 o'clock. So last night, it was a struggle. I've dozed off online, but I wasn't the only one. Like, the whole warehouse had to doze off. And the man like, hey. All y'all ass in here sleep. Baby, we tired. Half of the warehouse work 2 jobs. Like, literally. Job easy as crap. I promise you it's easy. But just God give me strength. Because, baby, I'm trying to get through the holidays. I need a new vehicle. Okay, so, all right, let me get through with these 2 goals. These 2 goals. Christmas and a vehicle. Just, God give me strength. The things a mother would do.
Warehouse jobs are absolutely no joke. I worked in a warehouse for about 5 months or so. At times, I lived off of energy drinks. I was usually tired all the time. At times, I only slept like 1 to 3 hours per night for a week straight. Many times it was like that.
I have never been more happy in my life than I am today, that today is Thursday, that it is Friday Eve. I'm lying. I ain't even gonna hold you. It's been plenty of Thursdays where I was like, one more day. But today is definitely one of them, like, this week has beat my ass. This week has dragged me, stomped me in my face, gave me a wedgie, and hung me from that motherfucker. This week has dog walked me. I have nothing left. I need an IV, a blunt, a bottle or 2 of wine, and some crabs.
I appreciate you guys watching the video today. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.